You've probably never heard of Rutherford B. Hayes, the 19th President of the United States. He wasn't a larger-than-life figure like Lincoln or a fiery revolutionary like Washington. He was a quiet, honorable man who, in a strange twist of fate, found himself at the center of the most explosive and disputed election in American history. This is the story of how a man of integrity became president through a deal that would change the course of the nation forever. Before he ever set foot in the White House, Hayes was a soldier. When the Civil War broke out, he didn't hesitate. He served with incredible bravery, earning the respect and loyalty of his men. He was wounded in battle not once, not twice, but 5 times. Each time he returned to the fight, his soldiers used to say he never asked them to go anywhere he wouldn't lead the way himself. Courage wasn't just a word to him, it was in his bones. This deep sense of duty and honor would define his entire life, but it would also lead him to make a decision with consequences that would echo for generations. After the war, Hayes entered politics, serving as a congressman and then as the governor of Ohio. He was known for his honesty and his commitment to reform, which made him a respected, if not exactly famous, figure in the Republican Party. He wasn't the loudest or most ambitious politician. He wasn't chasing fame or power. In many ways, he was the opposite of what we often imagine a president to be. But in 1876, his party needed a candidate who could restore trust in a government rocked by scandal. They chose Hayes, the quiet man of integrity, to run for the highest office in the land. His opponent was the Democratic governor of New York, Samuel J. Tilden. The election of 1876 quickly became one of the most bitter and contentious campaigns the country had ever seen. The nation was still deeply divided, recovering from the Civil War in the difficult era of Reconstruction that followed. Tensions were high, and the political atmosphere was a powder keg waiting for a spark. On election night, the results started rolling in, and it looked like Tilden was going to win. He had won the popular vote by a clear margin of about 250,000 votes. Newspapers across the country even began printing headlines declaring Tilden the next president. It seemed like the race was over. But then something strange happened. The results from 3 southern states, Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina, were suddenly in dispute. Both Democrats and Republicans in those states claimed victory and sent their own, competing sets of electoral votes to Washington. Suddenly, no one knew who the real winner was. Tilden was just 1 electoral vote short of the majority he needed to win. Hayes needed all the disputed votes from all 3 states to become president. The country was thrown into chaos. Accusations of voter fraud, intimidation, and corruption flew from both sides. Newspapers that had declared Tilden the winner now printed frantic headlines about a stolen election. The nation, which had just bled for 4 years in a civil war, was now teetering on the brink of another violent conflict. People were arming themselves, and there were whispers of a new war if the election wasn't settled fairly. For weeks, the country held its breath. The Constitution didn't have a clear process for handling a situation like this. To prevent a crisis, Congress created a special 15-member electoral commission to decide which set of votes from the disputed states should be counted. The commission was supposed to be impartial, made up of 5 senators, 5 members of the House, and 5 Supreme Court justices. It was a desperate attempt to find a peaceful solution. The commission's deliberations were intense. The entire nation watched as lawyers for both sides presented their cases. The political tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The commission was politically divided, with 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans, and 1 independent Supreme Court Justice, David Davis. Everyone assumed Davis would be the deciding vote. But in a last-minute twist, Davis was elected to the Senate and resigned from the commission. His replacement was a Republican justice, tilting the commission's balance 8-7 in favor of the Republicans. In a series of straight party line votes, the commission awarded every single disputed electoral vote to Rutherford B. Hayes. The decision was made. Hayes would be the next president, but the Democrats were outraged. They felt the presidency had been stolen from them, and they threatened to block the official counting of the votes in Congress, which would plunge the country into an even deeper constitutional crisis. This is where the story takes its most controversial turn. Behind closed doors, leaders from both parties met to hammer out a deal. This informal agreement would become known as the Compromise of 1877. The terms were stark. The Democrats agreed to accept Hayes as president and not block the final vote count. In return, the Republicans, led by Hayes, promised to withdraw all remaining federal troops from the southern states. These weren't just any troops. They were there to protect the rights of newly freed African Americans and to enforce the constitutional amendments that had granted them citizenship and the right to vote. Their removal would effectively end the era of Reconstruction. It was a deal made in the shadows to prevent a national crisis, but it came at a monumental cost. Hayes accepted the terms, believing it was the only way to heal the nation's political wounds and move forward peacefully. On March 4, 1877, Rutherford B. Hayes was sworn in as president. He had won the White House by a single electoral vote, 185 to 184, the narrowest margin in American history. But the compromise that put him there cast a long, dark shadow over his presidency and the future of the country. As promised, federal troops were withdrawn from the South. Without their protection, the fragile gains made by African Americans during Reconstruction were quickly rolled back. A new era of segregation and disenfranchisement began, and its wounds would last for another century. As president, Hayes tried to live up to his reputation for integrity. He fought against the political corruption that was rampant at the time and championed civil service reform, working to ensure that government jobs were given based on merit, not political connections. He kept his promise to serve only one term, hoping to rise above partisan politics. He and his wife, Lucy, were also known for their strict moral values, even banning alcohol from the White House. But his legacy would forever be tied to the Compromise of 1877. He entered office hoping to heal a divided nation, but the very act that made him president sacrificed the rights and safety of millions of its citizens. Hayes left the White House with his personal honor intact, but his presidency remains one of the most complex and debated in American history. He was the soldier who fought for the Union, the reformer who fought corruption, and the president born from a political storm that nearly tore the country apart for a second time. His is a story not just of one man, but of a nation grappling with its own identity, its ideals, and the difficult, often painful compromises made along the way. Thanks for watching. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what you think about the Compromise of 1877. See you next time.